After hearing that Jack hadn't seen the 2001 epic that is Band of Brothers, I decided to sit him down and make him watch every episode for the first time. 10 hours later, we gathered our thoughts. Did Band of Brothers live up to the hype for Jack? How does it hold up over 20 years later? And where does it rank amongst the greatest TV shows of all time? But before we get into the review, if you want to see Jack's reaction to every episode, be sure to hit the link to the playlist here or in the description below. Overall, Jack, 10 episodes, Band of Brothers, what do you think? Just what's your 30 seconds review of it?
It captivated what war was really like. It showed the brutal reality of every aspect of war. You see the main thing of it, obviously the brotherhood. It's literally a journey, but it's also broken down so smart with each episode having a different theme that you wouldn't necessarily even know about. But it sort of shows the reality, and I think a lot of that comes from the eyewitness accounts and it being real. Even though it was real, we'd never really seen something like this where you've probably got the first-hand accounts this so accurately and so clearly done in a production.
It absolutely does not glorify war at all. When you talk to people who were in the army, a lot of them would say the best thing about it is the band of brothers you make along the way. So whether it focuses on the story, that's why I think it's so great, because it focuses on the characters, it doesn't focus on the spectacle. Like the last two episodes, there's no fighting in it at all. And yeah, they're like some of the best ones. Absolutely perfect TV show. I think it's one of the best ever.
No, I agree. I really do.
So we'll go through each episode, kind of break it down. So we start with Currahee, which is the first episode. They're doing their basic training in, I think it's Georgia, in America. And obviously the standout episode, character from the episode is David Schwimmer as Captain Sobel. So what do you think about episode 1?
I think it was a really good sort of setting of pace, but also not revealing too much. It was I really liked that in episode 2, obviously, where it's building up to it and you get to see them before they're fully trained almost, and before they've made these bonds. So it's you go to a new school almost and they're sort of all being introduced. You sort of see the characters and you're already starting to see dynamics and it change within the group about who is a real leader, what kind of person is who, especially with some of the mountain climbs. Sobel's constantly trying to put them down a thing, and they're rallying, they're singing, and it's almost like a surprise to him, this sort of band of brothers coming together.
I think that's the best way to describe it. Episode 1 certainly is by the end of those episodes, you need to know who all the characters are. You need to understand what their roles are within the squad. You need to understand why they are such a tight-knit group, because later on in the episodes, there's the episode replacements, where the people are replacing those who were killed on D-Day, and how there is such a difference between the two. And I think even episode 8 or 9, they reference one of the characters. Remember the one who missed Bastogne and came back, and they all didn't like him because he missed Bastogne, but the replacements still called him whatever the camp in Georgia is called. They say you're like one of these guys, so you're like an OG.
Because he was at Normandy as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
That was the thing with it as well. He was still served. He was still a serious soldier was with him. But it's especially after Bastogne, it was no, you haven't really been with us in this true grit almost.
So episode 1 is fantastic, I think. I think it's a great way to set it all up, and you get to know what's Lipton's role, so Donnie Wahlberg's role, who's the leader, Winters, and
even Nixon and stuff.
There's a great introduction, and after it ends with them about to go into D-Day, and it really hooks you because they've done all this training. Let's see how good they are.
We also get the beginning when we're having the interviews as well. You don't even know if that's the specific characters, or if they're just regular vets, do you know what I mean? But the way it was described really helps set the tone for each episode. It really puts you in that somber state.
So Jack, what's your standout moment of episode 1?
My favourite part of that, I think, is when they're rallying on the hill and they're almost chundering, isn't it? The bit with lasagna, and he's Sobel's you're not going to do it. And that's the first part of the brotherhood you see.
I like the part when Sobel was just drilling them. I think it's when you first meet him, when he's drilling them when they're on parade. And there's also the other part when he tells them to turn their canteens upside down, and then Michael Fassbender's finishes earlier than everyone else. He's like, "Who told you to drink out your water?"
It did play the role good, to be honest, as much as I did struggle to not see him as Ross.
So say episode 2 is Day of Days. That's when they finally jump into Normandy. It's a pretty brutal episode. Right off the bat, people get injured straight away. The characters that you've seen in the first episode are all getting hurt. Bill Garnett goes nuts, just kills a load of Germans because he finds out his brother's dead. That's another thing, all the sub characters, you know them straight away, and going into episode 2 you're like, oh, this guy's gonna be like this guy's gonna be like this. But episode 2 is good because it throws you right into the action. It's not a filler episode. You go straight in for episode 1.
It establishes it straight away when it's that lost in the wilderness, and they're almost trying to call out, it's the code signs, and you're seeing people come through the dark and you're just, oh god, straight away it's thrown in, you don't know what's happening. But yeah, especially that towards the end of that trench scene as well, that's when you first get a good introduction into my boy Spears as well.
Spears, yeah. So the taking of the artillery gun, that's your first action piece.
We get our first body shot in that as well, don't we? We get our first injury. But it's just what you were saying earlier about the perspectives of it and how real it was, because straight afterwards it lists that actual event and that attack strategy used by Winters, and it shows you all the medals achieved, and that's what is so good about it. You're like, oh, such good action, so good. Oh wow, look at that bit. Oh my god, he got shot. And then you're like, oh god, at the end, it's like, this was real. This was a proper technique used. It's like some mix of emotion every episode, and it brings you up, down, and then at the end you can sit there like, Jesus, they had to do this.
It's our first like death, if that makes sense, for Winters, because Winters is the main character. You're following him. There's that guy, Moriarty
From Fleabag.
Yeah, the priest from Fleabag who dies. You meet him at the beginning of the episode, and he tags along with Winters, and then he dies at the end. Winters sort of takes him under his wing for like an hour, and he dies an hour later, and that's like Winters' first like loss. So that's what you do with Winter, and then after that he's like, I've had my loss, I've got to get these boys home.
That's when he steps up.
Is when he steps up. So what's your favourite part about episode 2?
I think my favourite part about episode 2 is that clearing of the trenches, and especially seeing Spears in his full glory. But it was the first bit of real combat, wasn't it? Like fighting on both fronts and seeing it so close, and it was almost claustrophobic. I think it was just filmed and executed perfectly.
I like you get the backstory to Spears when Malarkey meets the German, who's actually an American, and they have a chat.
Oh, yes,
and he wanders off, and then the whole story about whether did Spears kill those POWs or did he not, and then that stays with them for every episode.
We see that about that later on, a few more episodes.
I like that bit.
Yeah, I'll give you that. That's you win.
It's episode 3, Carentan. That's basically a big set piece battle, taking of the village, Carentan. Some pretty cool scenes in that, like the part when they're about to throw a grenade into the house, and the guy's like, "Don't."
Oh yeah.
And there's a family sitting there, and then the grenade goes off inside another room, and that bloke just walks out, just finished.
I think the best bit from this episode, it showed like the heart is Blythe sort of. It's not even. We don't even really know. It could be multiple things, but it's almost like a form of shell shock or like that, where he's just sitting there blind almost. But you just see like the mental effect of war, and it's already started this early on in the campaign. So you're like, oh god, this is not going to go well.
Because you follow him mostly for the episode, pretty much. He's like your eyes of the episode, Blythe. And again, he's another character that you get invested in, and then he almost dies at the end.
But he doesn't, does he? You said a thing about it, wasn't it, at the reunion or something?
It just says like at the end, it says like he died like 1947 or something like that. But apparently he didn't. That's what I remember hearing. But yeah, I think that is a good one. That's probably like the most character. That's the first like character episode, because then you have another one later on with the medic, and then you kind of follow Malarkey and Lipton as well. So I like that one. I like Blythe's character. I'm trying to think who he kind of represents. He's like the people who aren't supposed to be there, who are having to be there. It's
basically how a lot of people would be. I feel like I would be like that. I really would.
And what's another good thing about this episode is it's like the Americans take a hit. Like they take a lot of hits in this show, and they're not afraid to show it, which is good. It's not like America, yeah, come on.
That's what I mean. It's not like the Hollywoodization of it, is it? It's sort of showing you what happened.
So Jack, what's your favourite part of episode 3?
I still think it's the Blythe sort of journey. I like just staying with that throughout it, and then especially seeing like towards the end. And you see in that as well, the ending I actually really think is the best bit, when he's finally got a bit brave and he's finally leads that little expedition. You know, they're like, who wants to go first? And then straight away just shot straight in the neck, and it's just that cold reminder, like the brutal reality about the ups and downs of war.
Because I think Lipton gets injured. I like that part when Lipton gets hurt, and he's like checking him, and he's like, it's all still there, Lipton. Yeah. There's also a really funny part when a messenger's trying to talk to Winters, and his horse kept spinning around. And he's trying
yes.
That's quite a good, funny bit. So episode 4 is replacements. This is the one with James McAvoy. You got the people coming in to replace them at D-Day, and they're all giving them shtick, because they're like, you weren't at D-Day, yet you get the D-Day badge. And all things like that, making them take it off. And there's like a lot of... They don't like them, because they're replacements.
Yeah, this is the one with Abraham getting lost as well, isn't it? Yeah, that's a really good thing, sort of. It shows especially the bit in the barn, which I really enjoyed, when he thinks, because it shows like him having to kill like that, and then like the innocence of the civilians seeing it. Situations that happen like that must have been so many, almost like saying, Ryan, the horrors of war. Like having to put yourself in that situation and just to survive, basically, and get back to your brothers, what he had to go through.
The really good scene where they're taking the village in in Holland. I think they're in Holland.
And you got the Brits.
The tank guy's like, no, I can't see it. I'm going straight through.
He's like, I'm going through that. You can just see it there, right in front of you. I'll just be like, it's right there. Stop, please.
And then gets blown up. That's a really good scene. The fight in Holland, because again they lose. They have to retreat.
That also shows it in Holland, doesn't it? About the women, isn't it? It shows about the ones that have been like either sleeping with, or we don't know what they're forced upon, or like ones that have had children, wasn't it? Because there was a good woman with the children. What they were doing to them and shaving their heads and like putting swastikas on them. It's tough. It's a tough watch, and it's done on purpose.
So Jack, what's favourite part of episode 4? Replacements.
I think that barn scene. I think it just builds tension and atmosphere the best, to be honest, especially when they're hiding there and he's trying to like translate to him like it's okay. The guards keep coming out of the distractions and then they find the cloth, and then that little fight, the hand-to-hand combat. I think that just shows they both are petrified and scared as well, and it's sort of like the fight to return to your brothers.
I like the part when Nixon takes a bullet right to the head and just takes it.
Oh yes, that's a good
It's
bit
absolutely
as well.
dinged, and he gets back up again.
Yeah.
That's funny, that bit. So Crossroads. This is definitely one about Winters and him basically just accepting the position he's in and sort of taking in everything he's been through. Because it starts with him shooting the boy, and then you see that throughout the rest of the show. That's the last time he fires his gun in the entire show, because I think he gets promoted to captain after that.
It's done really smart with his memoirs as well, the way it's sort of told and the narrating over the episode. It's already started to play mental health wise throughout the earlier episodes, but this really solidifies it, especially that he gets given leave break, doesn't he? He goes to Paris, and there's almost like shots nowadays at these like really artistic they're sitting on the subway like that, and it's the flashing, you know, going along, and you can see him, he's like reminiscing, he's almost getting PTSD. Especially back then, they wouldn't have really known what that is like properly, do you know what I mean, or how to deal with it. It relays from all the things he's already had to do, like shooting the soldier, but that whole sequence was really good, them having to camp, and it was showing Winter's military strategies as well, especially pushing up and taking that little hill when they were massively outnumbered.
And like you mentioned, the way it's cutting between him typing on the typewriter and what actually happened, I think that's really, really good. It definitely is the middle episode though, because he takes you from the beginning, like D-Day is kind of like over now, and we're starting to get into Bastogne. We're moving into where they're just going to be like their hell, essentially. And then there's a nice little cameo at the end from Jimmy Fallon in his little car.
Yeah, that's weird, that was. That really was.
So what's your favourite part of episode 5?
I still think that whole France sequence, the way it transitions into Paris and seeing him sort of slowly break a little bit, and his mental health slowly being affected.
I think my favourite part of episode 5, I'd say I agree with you, probably that one. But I also like the part when it's like they throw the smoke, the red smoke, and then Winters is just sprinting, and it's just silence. And then he sees the boy, and the boy sees him, and he's like smiling at him for like a second, and then he clocks what he is, and then he just shoots him. And he is a boy. So episode 6 is Bastogne. This is one of those episodes where when I think of Band of Brothers, I always think of this episode, because you just follow Eugene around. It's really brutal as well, like, because he's the medic, just seeing all these injuries and what he has to do to fix all these men and how they all just rely on him. And there's that one scene that stands out where that guy gets shot and they're trying to get him and they just can't get him, and he's just like choking on his blood.
His like blown out, isn't it? Yeah.
Bastogne in the next episode are really, really rough. You just feel cold watching them, and you can see how horrible it is.
It does capture that perfectly, that cold, like sort of scared, alone essence, and you don't know where the enemy is. It really puts that claustrophobia and fear into you. Yeah, following Eugene, and especially you get that sort of break in reality, especially seeing that Belgian nurse, where he sort of builds that little friendship and bond with her as well. And then it's almost like you start to see characters slowly break, which we might see in the next episode as well, but almost like them getting relief of going back to that town. You almost see it in so many soldiers. It's like, yeah, go back to Thingy Town. But then you also have the urge to be there and want to keep coming back and fight. Like, as I said, mate, his foot is sock. He has to have his sock on it. He wants to stay out there, even though he's basically getting like trench foot almost.
Yeah, this episode's really good though. Like, this is probably one of my favourite ones. And it's almost like when he goes to the church, it is almost like another hell though, because they just get like shelled and bombed, and inside the thing is just terrible as well.
There's that little good bit as well with the rag as well. He picks up the rag and it's like a memento, but then someone needs his hand ragged, you know, from somebody cut him early or whatever it was, and it's sort of like, it's just showing that like cruel reality, like this was her basically, this is all that's left of her, but no, I need to help my friend.
I think that what that part means is it's like she's carrying on helping people.
Yeah.
When she's dead as well.
Yeah.
It's definitely one where you start to sit with the characters more as well, because you feel stuck with them as well, because I think it's one of the longest episodes, and the next one as well. You're stuck in Bastogne with these guys, and all you're seeing is just the trees and the snow, and you feel like you're there with them.
Yeah, it's especially the next episode as well. It really solidifies the nature of being stuck and the paranoia and claustrophobia.
What's your favourite part of episode 6?
I really like it. It's a bad part of it, but when Eugene turns, it comes down and he's talking to the nurse down there, and you sort of, there's a shot where it pans and you see all of the casualties, and that's just, it's almost like a little bit of a wake-up call yet again, like just to see the horrors of war, like, and you can see all manner of like injuries and people dead, and it's just so almost normal at that point. It's
hard for me to pick up a good bit out of this episode, because I think this whole episode's really good. It's gonna sound really sad. I like the ending, where he goes to the church and it's all been destroyed, and it's almost like all his hard work has just been for nothing, really, because everyone who's there is probably dead, and the nurse as well. Okay, so episode 7, Breaking Point. I think this is one of the best ones as well, because you get complete spears at the end.
Oh yeah, all spears, baby.
Like, when I was thinking back to the series, I thought that the attack on the town at the end and the shelling and Joe Toy and Bill Garner getting taken out of action, I thought those were 2 different episodes. That's how much happens in this one episode. A lot happens, and then Buck as well gets sent home because it's just too much for him. And because they're looking for a replacement, they want like someone to replace Winters because he's not the lieutenant anymore. And the one who was the lieutenant, I think, got shot by his own men. So now they've got this new guy, Lieutenant Dyke.
Just wandering off. What's good about watching this as well is, well, obviously we're dual audio through, but it's just the loudest, most horrendous, claustrophobic, like almost like flash lighting as well. Like, it's just so intense, the shelling, and so overwhelming. And it's just obviously done on purpose to let you feel how horrible that would have been. And it reflects so well. I remember watching that specific whole sequence of that shelling, and it was just unbelievably like strong.
It's that part that really stands out for me, because the episode follows Lipton and how he's talking, like, when the first shelling goes off, he said he felt like a kid at like the 4th of July show watching all the fireworks, and then the second round he says he doesn't feel like that at all, because he's like, if I knew what happened to Joe Toy and Bill Garner, I wouldn't have been laughing, because they get their legs blown off. And this is probably one of the saddest episodes, because they're 2 guys who you've been with since the beginning, since Georgia, and they have to go.
This is my little interesting tidbit for you. I work with someone that I was talking about doing this tonight, and he was like, "Oh, I worked on that film. I worked on that production."
Really?
He was like, I edited it, and he worked in the movie business for from like 1975 to the early 2000s. Do you know this whole sequence? You know, the shelling and that, and all the words. None of that's outside, all in a studio. I just couldn't believe that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was telling me things, but he said he's got all like things from the film, old film reels, and actually, because this was shot in film, 35mm, the whole thing, actual fresh film reels from this film cut out.
That's really cool.
Up in like his loft. Yeah, this was one of his favourite things he ever did, edited.
But after that shelling's like the scene with the shells, they then have to attack the town with Lieutenant Dyke. And I think this is like one of the best parts of the whole show, when he's like, they're all charging forwards, and Lieutenant Dyke's like, he's like, "Easy, company, stop." He's like holding them all up like that, and then you've got Winters going like, "Go forward."
And you can see him, can't you? Like,
and as he's like talking to him, he goes, "Spares!" And just unleash him like for the 300 immortal. And then that's when the episode really takes hold. And Jack, I'll let you, as you're the big fan of Spears, I'll let you describe what Spears does.
Oh, he just full sends it and does just a Hail Mary and sprints. And what's best is just at the right time when it shows it happening, where it just looks so unrealistic. Like, what the hell? He actually did that. Do you know what I mean? And it was especially at the end when they're like, it makes you think like, how are these? It's just like mythical tales almost. The way he runs like that all the way back to give the signal and then comes all the way back, and he's just not scared of anyone or anything.
Yeah, because it doesn't really like mythicize Spears even more, and the fact that it is real. Like, he goes to link up with Ink Company or whatever it was, and then comes back. Is just, and all the Germans are just looking at him like that's probably that's like top 3 moments I think of the show for me.
Yeah.
And Spears is like 25. He's at the same age as me when he does that, which is nuts.
It's nuts, isn't it?
It's absolutely nuts. Did I tell you about the age of Winters?
Didn't you say he's 27?
20, yeah, 26, 27. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane,
isn't it?
It's absolutely insane. Yeah. What is your favourite part of episode 7?
I think it's the Spears charge. It's just such like an adrenaline dump watching it.
It's, for me, it's the same as well. From that whole point of where Dyke stops to the point where the episode ends, it's just pure Spears, and then he becomes their lieutenant. And at the end, we have to say goodbye to Buck, which is very sad. But we see him at the end, playing baseball, and he's on the the lawyer that convicts Sirhan from shooting Robert Kennedy.
Killing Bobby Kennedy.
Yeah. Okay, so episode 8, The Last Patrol. It's kind of like because you're so used to being in Bastogne, it's almost like a break episode. It's like an interlude episode almost before we get into the finale, because it's almost like a short story almost. You've got the beginning, the middle, and the end, and it's like a nice concise episode. I mean, you follow Malarkey, and they're all just done. They're done with it now. Even Winters is like, we're so close to the end, I don't want to risk losing anyone. And then you have the introduction of you got the guy who comes back who missed Bastogne because he got injured in Holland.
And then you got Tom Hanks' son, don't you?
And I like his story. I like that character because at the beginning he has to prove himself, but he has to do it smartly, and no one will give him the chance. And then at the end of the episode, that annoying one, he's like drunk, and he's like, "You drunk trooper!" And then the sergeant, the one who's been with them since the beginning, backs him up and says. So, and I think he would have been, but then he gets transferred at the end of the episode. So he would have been a good addition to Easy Company.
It's a little bit of a breakup episode as well, I think. It's sort of just a spacer episode, but it's also, yeah, it's showing that, especially when they're deciding about doing the night raid as well, like the hesitancy with it as well, just to get that information, isn't it, about if they're surrendering or not. Or it's literally as simple as that. But it shows that sort of power trip almost of like the powers above. It's like, look, we know they're basically going to surrender soon. It's like, but we have to do 2 night operations. And especially the bit towards the end where they're like, you're going to say that you went out this morning. None of you are going. You're going to say you've gone out, because it's like there's no point of wasting life over this at this point. And it's almost like they don't even want to go over and kill the Germans anymore. It's like there's no point.
When I first watched it, this was like one of the slower episodes for me. But now that I've watched it again, I really like this one, because it does show that they're all like, they're getting close to the end and they're basically done with this war.
What's your favourite part of this episode then, Will?
So my favourite part of this episode is probably the raid. The raid stands out the most for me, when they're going across the river and setting up just before they go in the house. Like when they just fall in the lake at the beginning, and then you got the sergeant, I always forget his name, doing like all the hand signals and stuff, leading the operation. I think that's cool. That's a cool scene.
Yeah, I like that scene. I sort of like the aftermath of that scene. Again, it's showing the brutal reality of the war, where they could just hear the German crying on the beachfront, you know, on the little lake bit.
There is another close second for me, and you're going to laugh because it sounds weird when I'm talking about it, when I introduce it, but there's a reason for it.
I will laugh.
And it's when Malarkey goes for the shower, but it's because it's just let me finish. It's because it shows like something so simple as that. It's just like a complete cleanser of everything that is just
no. Hold up, let him cook.
Yeah. When I watch that scene, I'm always like, that looks so relaxing, and it's like, you've earned that, Malarkey. Yeah, so episode 9 is probably the most memorable episode. Whenever anyone talks about Band of Brothers, they always talk about episode 9 because it's so unexpected. Like, when I first watched it, I was like, oh my god, I did not expect this.
I forgot about it. You know what I mean? Like, when you started watching it, I was like, oh, it's obviously... And then I just remembered, like, oh my god, there's these camps there.
And it's so brutal as well. Like, they don't shy away from it. It's not like they liberate the camp and the camp inmates join the fight with them. It's just like, no, this is probably what happened. It's absolutely hell. And they're all disgusted when they're there. They're scared to even touch the people because they don't even know what's going on. And it's so realistic, and it's horrible, that scene.
It had some of the prosthetics they used as well on some of like the dead bodies. It's just like, it was just so brutal. The bodies were just so nourished as well, especially the actors as well. Some of them so skinny, like you could see their floating rib cage. It was that brutal reality where we were building up to it. Obviously, when I didn't put 2 and 2 together for a second, but you know, they're like, we found something, and you're like, oh, is it Nazi gold? Oh, is it thingies? And it's just like, no. And it's the way that the van comes and you see the trees and it's the music's like, and you're just like, oh my god, like it's that harsh reality again. Especially if someone's never, obviously everyone will know about the World War II, but like that in depth of it, or you would watch this and be like, oh, like I completely forgot about this or didn't realise. And there's so many good little character arcs, and especially him coming in and finding that woman and then having to have him clean it at the end. And
yeah, the woman's house, and then she sees him and he's like going through her stuff and jolts a picture of her husband. He feels a bit ashamed for doing this, for breaking into this woman's house, trying to look for, was it VAT 69, however it was. And then he sees her in the camp and he's looking at her, and she's the one reversed, she's feeling ashamed. Yeah, the scenes when the soldiers have to start giving them food, and Liebgott has to give that speech, and you can just see the sadness when he's having to do it, and just how this affects everyone.
They have to cage him back up.
It's because you don't see this in many World War II movies. There's always like World War II movies, and then there's Holocaust movies, and you barely see them kind of cross. But you forget that these people, they're probably the people in Saving Private Ryan, probably liberated a camp as well at some point later down the line. Always forget about that part. And it's the episode called Why We Fight, because like this is because so many of them throughout the entire thing keep saying like, why are we here? Why did you guys brought us into this war? And it's like, this is why you're here, to stop this.
Yeah, there's a really good important bit in it as well, where one of the prisoners comes up and he's trying to broken trying to translate why they're there, and it's like, oh, you're criminals, and he's like, no, he's like, no, he's not using that word, it's something different. Do you know what I mean? It's like the building up thingy, and he's like, no, he's like, we're bankers, we're teachers, we're mothers here, and it's just like breaking it down. It's just like, this is what they are, like, and then it's just like, no, Jewish, and it's just like, and it's that reality, they're just all there like, what the hell.
It's like the soldiers would have been Jewish as well. I think this is one of the best episodes of any TV show.
Yeah, it is the best episode of the series, without a doubt. Quite far ahead of the rest. What's your favourite moment, Will?
I wouldn't say it's a favourite moment from this episode, but I say it's the most poignant. I think this is also the episode where they find out Hitler's dead and the war is basically over right at the end, because it starts with them playing violin in the town, they're clearing up the rubble. But the most impactful moment of this episode is when probably when Liebgott's giving his speech on top of the truck, and he's saying they have to lock everyone up because you can see he's just very, very sad. There's a funny bit though when what was it, Michael Fassbender's standing behind Winters or something, and he says, "Does anyone here speak German?" And then Michael Fassbender has to be like, "No, but I think he does," or something. But he speaks fluent German, yeah, in real life. What's your favourite part, Joe?
Well, again, exact same situation, not favourite, but it's an unbelievable good little tracking shot. As soon as they walk up to the camp, someone's just carrying a body, which is just a skeleton, just walking towards them, and it's just a slow frame shot walking, and it's just like that picture just captures what the war was.
Okay, so we're on the last episode now. Points. I like this one. I think this is a good ending because it's like they take the eagle's nest, which I think was like I said to you when we were watching it, it's like if someone forced me to be in World War II on one day, I would pick being with Easy Company when they take the eagle's nest, because it looks fun. I'm not gonna lie,
it's the easiest job
ever.
Yeah.
It looks quite, to say you took eagle's nest and you took all like Hitler's silverware and the guy takes Hitler's photo album, that's pretty cool. But then you sort of get like it winding down, how it's like the war is over, but for some they haven't got enough points to get home. They got to go to Japan, and a lot of them start getting bored, and you start seeing what do they have to do now to reconstitute Germany, because it's like the Germans are like guarding the roads with them. They're friends essentially now, and it's just like, what's going on now? The war's over, but there's still unnecessary death going on.
Yeah, it shows that sort of reality as well. You start to see with some of it, the soldier that's drunk as well. It's also it shows you a little bit, especially towards the end, it's them trying to get back to reality, isn't it? Almost.
It is a good ending. I think the last 10 minutes is really, really good when the guy, I think the first officer surrenders to him, and he's like, you can keep your pistol, that bloke. I think in real life, Winters takes the pistol, and he still has, because I remember seeing a video, it's Winters sitting there with a Luger or a gun, and he says, "I've never fired this gun, and it will never be fired." Then you have the second German officer who's like, he does the speech to his German soldiers.
But he needs Lipton, doesn't he, to thingy him first, doesn't he? They need someone who's a higher rank.
Oh yeah. Liebgott translates to him, and you could basically just replace every time he says like Germany or fatherland with America, and it's the same speech relates to the men of America, and it just shows that on both sides, no one really wanted to be there, and everyone was doing their best. You have the talks about what everyone was doing when they're playing the game of baseball, and then it ends with the speech from Winters.
It's revealed, you get the big reveal of all these characters hidden that we've been talking to, where they could have been National Geographic, like commentators or whatever, but you're like, oh my god, they've been with me this whole time on this journey.
Yeah, and it all makes sense, because like, obviously, of course that's Winters, of course that's Bill Gunner, and yeah, I think it really that got me the first time I saw it. I was like, wow, so these guys we're talking about, they're obviously veterans because they're talking about it, but I didn't realise they were the characters. And it's just, that's
what was brilliant about it. I just didn't think of it for a second, because especially the way they were dying a lot and you didn't know who was going to die, and it's just like, wow, that's them.
Yeah, another scene actually that's quite good is the one in I think it's the end of the second Bastogne episode, when they're in the church and they're talking about who they've lost, and all they start disappearing.
Oh, it fades away. Yeah, brilliant.
But yeah, so that's the end of episode 10, and it looks like Winters is going to go off to Japan, but then the war peace is declared and everyone just goes home, and that's the end. But the war never really leaves, as they say.
Especially on the people that fought in it.
And Winters actually has to go back, and he doesn't have to fight, but he has to rejoin the army for Korea.
And Spears as well. Spears went.
Spears stays in the army, yeah. So what's your favourite part of episode 10?
I think it's the ending. I think it's seeing that, like all of them, their stories, but I know it's just seeing right at the end where it says their names next to it when they're talking at the end. It's just such an impactful thing, like, especially that whole time, not knowing who they are, or they might be soldiers, and then just seeing, wow, that's actually Winters. Like, it's weird. It's like a weird moment where it's like, superheroes, they're not real, but it's like they are real. Imagine if someone was like, no, there's actually Spider-Man in real life, and you've been watching all these movies. That's what it felt like a little bit, like, oh my god, these guys are heroes.
Yeah, and it's sad as well, because they're all gone now. All the people in that TV show.
Every single one of them.
So it's good that they made this show, because this will go down forever.
What you said about their grandchildren, isn't it? Imagine that, being like the grandchildren, and like look at Spears.
Yeah.
My dad reaping like that for literally just going ham.
I wonder what he was like in real life, though. Spears, like Winters. It's just a guy, like they're kids, like they're 20. And they're doing that.
I know, I'd love to have a beer with Spears.
Spears with beers. Beers with Spears. Spears with beers. Yeah, it's my favourite part. I agree with you. Close second is when Nixon discovers the Goering, when he finds Goering's wine collection in his basement, and he's like, "This is all yours." And he's like, "The finest wines in the world," and he's looking at it just like a child at Christmas. That's every episode we covered. What's your favourite one out of all of them?
This is why we fight. Without a doubt, it's the best episode. It's just that whole sequence of the concentration camp. It can't be topped. The acting's the best in it. the mood, the pacing of that episode is just fantastic. The different arcs, as we said, about the relations of seeing that and feeling like embarrassed and like upset, and then it's switching the role reversals. I just think that's the perfect episode, and it captures what the true brutality of war. Without doubt.
Yeah, like to be honest, I think every single episode is as good as the next. It's hard to pick one, but This Is Why We Fight is the one that stands out above them all. But I don't think I can say which one is my favourite, because when I think of that one, I also think I really like Points as well, the ending. But then I also really like Carentan, and I also really like the first episode. It's so difficult to pick, so I don't think I can pick. Favourite character?
It's Spears, I think. I just love his brutality, but also his calmness, and you can tell that as much as that's what he even says in Bastogne. They're like, are those stories true? And he's like, they don't need them to be true. It's the fear, but also the respect. And it's as much as anyone says he's trying to keep his men alive, he's trying to get everyone through it. He's giving them these speeches about staying dead inside, but also being the one that leads them. He's not someone that sits on the back. He's someone that is pushing through and actually leading through and trying to get everyone home.
I think I like Winters. Like if I could aspire to be someone, it'd be Winters. And I'm the same age as Winters when he was there as well. So it'd be nice to know if I could be like him. So the characters and the acting and the performances were, I don't think there's a single one which is really bad.
No.
Like the standout ones are Damian Lewis, Ron Livingston's Nixon. Who's the other main characters? The guy who plays Malarkey, the sergeant Dexter Fletcher is his acting, or his real name, his acting name, his real name.
Acting name.
I think they're like the standouts for me. The core
Yeah.
groups of Easy Company.
It'd be interesting to find out if they've done some core team building before the series started. Yes, that's, I didn't know that or not, but that seems like they did, to be honest, because it really did seem very natural, a lot of their like interactions, and it made it seem, especially from episode 1 and 2, that sort of, they acted almost that jittery awkwardness. They didn't need to, because it already seemed like they were really close. Do you know what I mean?
And what's also good about it is like the vast majority of them aren't even American. Damien Lewis is English. Michael Fassbender's Irish. So, yeah, Stephen Graham's from Liverpool. He's got a proper like accent like that. Dexter Fletcher's like Cockney from London. And they all play these Americans really, really well. And David Schwimmer as well. Like I think he's the most hated character in Band of Brothers. Everyone says Sobel. Played by David Schwimmer, who's probably like one of the nicest guys.
I think my most hated character would be Hitler. It's each their own, but I think you've done goof there, Will.
I forgot he's teased at the end of episode 1 in the post-credit scene. I guess Hitler is the real villain. And I think it's just a great casting for this show. It could have got anything wrong and it would have ruined the whole thing. Like we didn't even mention Donnie Wahlberg. Like he's great as Lipton. He feels like the natural successor because Buck's another great character as well. Like he starts off as like cool-headed, the second in command essentially. All the men follow him and he just loses it.
Slowly breaks. That cinema scene's the best, isn't it? And he's like the movie, and he's literally just like really well acted of someone having like a mental decline like that and trying to keep it together as well.
And Malarkey, because at the beginning he's the one who talks to the American German. And he seems like this happy-go-lucky kind of guy. And by the time we get to the last patrol, he's just a broken shell of a man who's in charge of all these men, and he just can't do it. He just doesn't want to risk it anymore.
It's the acting is phenomenal in the series.
It really is. The talking heads we have at the beginning of the old men, the veterans, I think is what makes this show so unique. Because I haven't really seen a show like that's done that before.
No, I agree. As I said to you, it gives a different perspective and sort of it sets the tone as well for each episode. Like what you're sort of getting into. As I said, it's like the recruits, reinforcements. It's like they start the tone of it, and you're like, oh, this is what the common theme is. It's a really good little starting narrative as well, like to explain the different situations better. But again, especially works so well at the end when it gets revealed like that. Yeah, it works perfectly for a series as well, I think. Because if you had a movie, you might have at the beginning, the end. I've seen that. But just having it like build through and seeing these different characters, slowly different ones come on as well, it really makes you feel like you're with them. Yeah, and it reminds you like they're trying to really convey that this is a real story by extraordinary men, and they are telling the story, and it's to keep you grounded in reality that this is real and what they're describing the events you're about to see. The fact that they're using the men in the show is timeless, because a lot of them, like Lewis Nixon dies in the 90s. They've made it at the perfect time to sort of immortalize them. Like they will forever be remembered because of this. Those are 10 episodes. Not obviously short, but it's not long. It's a nice little chunk together. But yeah, that's literally, I've always wanted to watch it, just never got round to doing it. Well, you won't be surprised to know that this absolutely cleared up in the awards. I think when it wins the Golden Globe or the Emmy, one of them two, what's his name? Winters collects the award, the real. Oh, okay, I'm going to watch that after this. And all the there's 5 members of Easy Company are like in a hotel somewhere, and there's like a live stream of them watching it.
It's really cool.
Oh wow, I'm gonna watch that.
But the legacy of this is really, really big. Like, I can't think of another TV show. Well, after it's the Pacific, I can't think of a TV show like this that is as good as this, or like a World War II one. And it almost sets the blueprint. A lot of war films and TV shows are kind of copying. Like Chernobyl feels very much like this because it's both HBO. Like this feels like HBO kind of like nailed the formula.
It's that grittiness, it's like the grittiness and like realism sort of is just perfect. Yeah.
And the HBO seasons are just, they're the best. I think they make the best TV shows. HBO.
They do make the best TV series.
So when you go on like websites like IMDb, this is number 4 in the top TV shows of all time. For me, it's number 1. This is the number 1
It's
TV show of
number
all
1
time.
Game of Thrones.
No, it's Planet Earth 2.
Oh no, don't tell me.
Oh, sorry. So yeah, do you agree with it being 4th TV show of all time on IMDb?
Yes. I have. This is the thing. I have no qualms with that.
So summarising our thoughts, I'll let you start, Jack.
I've not seen anything like this, and the amount of war films I've seen and series, it captures it perfectly. And there's not one moment in this where it's glamorized like in other series or films. It shows every aspect of war. It shows the brotherhood. It shows the betrayal. It shows the human nature. It shows what humans can do to other humans. On top of that, it's tremendous acting. We see like unbelievable acting talents coming up, like how young some of these stars are as well, like Tom Hardy. It's almost paved their careers, almost, you could say that, from how, the amount of stars that are in part of this production. It's just overall accompanied with the interviews, the stories. I almost want to read the book because you said there's a book of this, isn't there, the Band of Brothers? It's just the perfect horrors of war, and this shows that.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. For me, this is the greatest TV show of all time. I'd watch it any day of the week. I think I'll probably watch it once a year for the rest of my life. The way it just, it doesn't glamorize anything. It really incorporates the idea of brotherhood. You feel with every character. You relate to every character. You don't want anything to happen to any single one of them, but you know something's going to happen to at least one of them. And every episode is just a 10 out of 10. There is no bad episodes. There's no bad acting. And if you were to like make a timeline of like cinema history, you definitely put like 2001 Band of Brothers is released. And it becomes like one of the greatest movie series of all time, and I think it's a great legacy to the men of Easy Company. So Jack, who's your MVP for Band of Brothers the entire season?
My MVP is going to be Matthew Settle, who plays Lieutenant Spears. I think that he is the perfect soldier. We have different elements of soldiers in this, like leaders and things. I think he is a leader. He's a fighter. He's a warrior. He is the perfect epitome of what they needed in that war. And I think he's portrayed in that manner as well. He's the one which is going to be rough and tough. He's the one that's going to have legends about him said, that's going to keep men in line, but also respect them. And I think throughout this, he's had some of the bravest feats that like no one's ever done before. And he joined Easy Company and he led them valiantly.
So my MVP is going to be Damian Lewis playing Winters, because he's the most only constant really throughout every episode, and he is the main character. He's the glue that holds this whole thing together, and he is Easy Company. He's the commanding officer of Easy Company. I think he's just fantastic. He really, really brings Winters to life, and without him, I don't think the show would be what it is. Great casting and great acting by Damian Lewis, who I've seen in real life at Wembley Stadium. So Jack, what was your score then? Quite a difficult one for Band of Brothers.
For the whole series, I'm going to give Band of Brothers a 9.
Is that 100?
Sorry, let's just get that fly first.
Yeah.
Is that 100? 9.
Don't you even joke.
You're like, yeah, make it higher. You're like, make it higher. My score for Band of Brothers is going to be a 93. Very high and very good score. What about you, Will?
My score for Band of Brothers, Jack, is going to be a 95. Best TV show of all time.